When we think of vegetables, we think of health fiber, vitamins, antioxidants, right? And for good reason. But today, I want to share something that may surprise you, especially if you're over 60. Some vegetables, yes, even healthy ones, can hide risks to your heart if you're not careful. Now, I'm not here to scare you away from eating your greens. I'm here to help you eat smarter because as we age, our bodies change. What helped your heart at 40 may stress it at 70. So let's walk through 5 hidden dangers in common vegetables that every senior should know, and more importantly, what you can do about them. When we talk about plant-based foods, spinach, beets, and Swiss chard are often held up as gold standards of nutrition. They're rich in vitamins, minerals, and plant compounds that protect our cells. They've earned their place in the conversation about foods that support health and longevity. But there's something hidden inside these vegetables that's important to understand, especially as we get older, and that something is oxalates. Oxalates are natural compounds found in many leafy greens, root vegetables, and even some nuts and seeds. They're not inherently harmful. In fact, for most healthy people, eating oxalates occasionally poses no problem. But for adults over 60, especially those dealing with changes in kidney function, mineral imbalances, or increased inflammation, oxalates can begin to tip the scale in the wrong direction. Let's start by understanding how oxalates work in the body. When you eat foods high in oxalates, like raw spinach or beet greens, those compounds enter your digestive system where they can bind to calcium. This binding process forms calcium oxalate, which is not easily absorbed by the body and is usually excreted through urine. Sounds harmless, right? But if calcium oxalate builds up too much, especially in people with reduced kidney function, it can lead to the formation of kidney stones. This is the most widely known issue associated with oxalates. But kidney stones are just one part of the picture. The more subtle and often overlooked concern involves how oxalates can influence inflammation and vascular health, especially in older adults. When oxalates circulate in the body in excess, they can contribute to low-grade inflammation, which in turn can damage the endothelium, the inner lining of blood vessels. That lining is critical to heart health. It helps control blood pressure, regulates blood clotting, and even manages cholesterol transport. When the endothelium becomes inflamed or stiff, the risk of hypertension, atherosclerosis, and other cardiovascular diseases increases. This becomes more important after age 60. Why? Because the aging body processes oxalates less efficiently. Kidney filtration slows down. The gut microbiome, which plays a role in breaking down and eliminating oxalates, may become less diverse. At the same time, seniors often experience subtle shifts in calcium absorption and utilization, which further complicates the way oxalates behave in the body. Let's bring it back to something many of us do without thinking, making a spinach smoothie every morning. It seems like a smart, nutrient-dense choice, but raw spinach is one of the highest oxalate foods out there. In just one up, you can consume over 600 milligrams of oxalates, a dose that for a sensitive person or an older adult with declining kidney function could start to add up if consumed regularly.
But this doesn't mean you need to eliminate these vegetables from your diet. That's not the message.
The key is to understand how to reduce the oxalate burden without missing out on the good. For example, cooking methods matter. Boiling spinach or Swiss chard and then draining the water can reduce oxalate content by up to 40%. Steaming helps too, though to a lesser extent. Fermentation is another technique used in traditional cultures that not only reduces oxalates, but also boosts the probiotic content of foods, win-win for digestion and cardiovascular support. Balance is another essential piece. Instead of eating oxalate-rich foods daily, alternate with low oxalate greens like arugula, watercress, romaine, or bok choy. These are still rich in nutrients, but far less likely to contribute to oxalate buildup. At the same time, be sure to get adequate calcium, not necessarily through supplements, but through food sources like leafy greens, low oxalate types, almonds in moderation, or dairy if tolerated. Calcium binds oxalates in the gut and prevents them from being absorbed into the bloodstream, allowing the body to eliminate them more safely. Also worth noting is the role of the microbiome. Certain beneficial gut bacteria, like Oxalobacter formigenes, actually help degrade oxalates in the digestive tract. But antibiotic use, poor diet, and aging can reduce these bacteria, supporting your gut health through fermented foods like kefir, sauerkraut, and kimchi, or even prebiotic-rich vegetables like leeks and garlic, can help maintain a gut environment that manages oxalates more efficiently. Ultimately, knowledge is power. We often think of plant-based foods as universally safe and beneficial, and they mostly are, but even nature's best options can come with caveats, especially when it comes to a body that's evolving with age. Understanding oxalates isn't about avoiding vegetables. It's about using science to fine-tune your choices so that food continues to protect rather than burden your heart. If you're over 60 and eating a plant-forward diet, great, keep going. Just be mindful. Diversify your greens, cook where it helps, rotate your veggies, and if you're managing kidney issues, mineral imbalances, or cardiovascular concerns, consider speaking with a healthcare provider or nutritionist who understands how to personalize these decisions. Because when you eat with wisdom, especially as you age, you're not just nourishing your body, you're sending signals to your heart, your brain, your vessels, your immune system, and those signals can be the difference between surviving and thriving. When you walk through the grocery store, it's easy to feel good about picking up canned vegetables. They're convenient, affordable, and often marketed as just as nutritious as fresh. And to some extent, that's true. Canned beans, peas, corn, and tomatoes still contain fiber, plant-based protein, and essential vitamins. But there's something quietly hiding in many of these foods that can be a real concern for heart health, especially in older adults: sodium. Now, sodium itself isn't the villain. Our bodies need it to conduct nerve impulses, contract muscles, and maintain fluid balance. But like most things in biology, balance matters. And as we age, that balance becomes more delicate. What many people don't realize is that a single serving of canned vegetables can contain 400 to 600 milligrams of sodium, sometimes more. But here's the catch. Most people eat more than one serving. So what you think is a healthy lunch of canned soup with veggies or a side of beans could be adding over 1,000 milligrams of sodium to your daily total. And that's before you've even touched the salt shaker. Why is this important after age 60? Because the body becomes more sensitive to sodium with age. The kidneys, which are responsible for filtering excess sodium out of the bloodstream, become less efficient over time. And for many seniors, blood vessels begin to stiffen, a natural part of aging, making them more reactive to salt. The sensitivity can lead to increased blood pressure, which puts extra strain on the heart, arteries, and kidneys. High blood pressure doesn't usually make noise, it doesn't cause pain, doesn't make you dizzy, and often doesn't come with symptoms. But over time, it quietly damages the delicate lining of blood vessels, contributing to atherosclerosis or hardening of the arteries. This sets the stage for serious cardiovascular events, heart attacks, strokes, and heart failure. And because sodium plays a direct role in fluid retention, it can also contribute to swelling, shortness of breath, and even congestive heart issues, especially in older adults who may already be managing conditions like atrial fibrillation or valve disease. The problem with canned vegetables is not the vegetable itself, it's how it's preserved. Salt is used as a preservative to extend shelf life and enhance taste. In some cases, canned vegetables contain more salt than they need to. What's more, even labels like healthy or low fat may still come with high sodium levels. So you can't assume it's heart healthy just because it's plant-based or says vegetable on the front. But here's the good news. Once you understand the issue, there are simple science-backed solutions that let you continue enjoying the convenience of canned vegetables without the cardiovascular risk. First, always read the label. Don't just glance at the front of the can, flip it over and look at the nutrition facts. A sodium content over 300 milligrams per serving should raise a flag. Even better, look for labels that say no salt added or low sodium. These products are becoming more common and are worth the extra search. Second, get in the habit of rinsing your canned vegetables. A simple 30-second rinse under cold water can remove up to 40% of the sodium content. That's an easy intervention that has immediate heart benefits. Think about it. Rinsing canned beans before tossing them in a salad isn't just good cooking. It's cardiovascular protection. Third, use fresh or frozen vegetables when possible. Frozen vegetables in particular retain nearly all their nutrients and don't require added salt for preservation. If you're sauteing greens, steaming broccoli, or roasting cauliflower from frozen, you're giving your body the same nutrients without the sodium baggage.
Right.
Fourth, retrain your palate. For many older adults, salt has become the default flavor enhancer, but it doesn't have to be. Herbs like thyme, basil, rosemary, and turmeric not only make vegetables taste better, but also deliver anti-inflammatory, antioxidant benefits that directly support your arteries and heart. A little lemon juice or a splash of vinegar can brighten flavor and reduce the craving for salt. Let's not forget the broader picture here. Sodium is just one part of the story, but it's an important one, particularly for older adults managing blood pressure, kidney function, or existing heart conditions. And when it comes to vegetables, we should be encouraging more, not less. The solution isn't to stop eating them, it's to eat them smarter.
This is the kind of shift that makes a big difference over time.
Cutting 1,000 milligrams of sodium per day, the equivalent of skipping 2 overly salty meals, can significantly lower systolic blood pressure. That small shift could reduce your risk of stroke or heart attack by 20 to 30% based on what clinical research has shown. So next time you reach for a can of vegetables, pause for just a moment. Ask yourself, can I find a low sodium version? Can I rinse this? Can I add flavor another way? These small decisions, made repeatedly over time, shape the future of your heart health. Because ultimately, food is more than fuel. It's information for your body, a daily message you send to your blood vessels, your metabolism, and your immune system. The more clearly and carefully you craft that message, the stronger your heart will be in the years ahead. There's a group of vegetables that often goes unnoticed in discussions about inflammation and heart health. They're beautiful, colorful, and deeply embedded in global cuisine. Think of bright red tomatoes, shiny purple eggplants, Sikh bell peppers, and spicy chili peppers. These all belong to the nightshade family, technically called Solanaceae. These vegetables are rich in nutrients, and for many people, they're perfectly healthy. Tomatoes, for example, contain lycopene, a powerful antioxidant linked to reduced risk of heart disease. Bell peppers are packed with vitamin C. Eggplants offer fiber and plant-based phytonutrients, but for a specific group of people, and this becomes more common as we age, nightshades can pose an unexpected challenge. They may trigger low-grade inflammation, which over time can strain the heart and blood vessels. The key compounds behind this reaction are alkaloids, naturally occurring chemicals that plants produce to defend themselves against pests. In nightshades, one common alkaloid is solanine, which in very high doses is toxic. Of course, the amount in food isn't toxic, but in sensitive individuals, even normal levels may lead to irritation in the gut lining or immune system activation. Why does this matter for people over 60? Because with age, the body's immune system becomes more prone to chronic low-grade inflammation, often called inflammaging. This isn't the type of inflammation you'd notice, like swelling from a cut. Instead, it operates quietly beneath the surface, gradually damaging blood vessels, raising blood pressure, stiffening arteries, and contributing to atherosclerosis. It's subtle, and it builds up over time. Now, add to that the fact that many seniors already experience joint pain, arthritis, or digestive discomfort. all conditions that may be exacerbated by inflammatory triggers. While nightshades are not the root cause of these conditions, in some people, they can act as an accelerant. Inflammation doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's influenced by what we eat, how we move, how we sleep, and how our microbiome interacts with food. Some people report feeling achy, foggy, or fatigued after eating dishes heavy in nightshades. Think eggplant, parmesan, spicy salsa, or roasted bell peppers. Others might notice no difference at all, but if you're in your 60s or older and living with an inflammatory condition, it's worth paying attention. The heart is especially vulnerable to inflammation. Inflammation alters how blood vessels dilate, how plaque forms, and how efficiently the heart pumps. If you're unknowingly eating a food that inflames your body just a little every day, the cumulative effect can add up over the years. It doesn't mean you need to avoid tomatoes for life, but it does mean learning how to listen to your body and make adjustments where needed. So how do you know if nightshades are a problem for you? One option is a short-term elimination experiment. Remove nightshade vegetables from your diet for 2 to 3 weeks. That includes tomatoes, eggplants, bell peppers, and hot peppers. During that time, pay attention to how your body feels, particularly your joints, digestion, energy, and mood. After the break, reintroduce one nightshade at a time, slowly, and observe how you respond. If you feel better without them, lighter, less achy, more comfortable, that's valuable data. You don't necessarily have to eliminate them forever, but you might choose to reduce how often you eat them or how much. There are also ways to reduce the inflammatory potential of nightshades without cutting them out completely. Cooking, for instance, significantly lowers the solanine content. Raw tomatoes or peppers are more likely to irritate sensitive individuals, while cooked or roasted versions are easier to digest. Removing the skins and seeds, which concentrate most of the alkaloids, can also help. Fermenting is another traditional approach. Fermented tomato paste or aged pepper sauces not only reduce alkaloids, but introduce beneficial probiotics that support the gut and immune system. Remember, your gut is where much of your inflammation control starts and ends. A well-functioning gut helps regulate inflammatory signals that influence the heart, brain, and joints. Also, keep the rest of your diet supportive. If you do enjoy nightshades, surround them with anti-inflammatory allies, leafy greens, omega-3 rich foods like flax seeds and salmon, turmeric, green tea, and berries. These foods actively calm the immune system and protect blood vessels, helping buffer any potential irritation from other ingredients. At the end of the day, nightshades are not inherently dangerous, but they're not universally tolerated either. As we age, the margin for error narrows. The foods we eat either help our body heal and stay balanced, or they add friction to a system already doing its best to maintain equilibrium. So be curious, stay observant, tune in to how your body responds, not just to how food tastes, but to how it makes you feel 1 hour, one day, and 1 week later. In nutrition, there is no one size fits all, but there is one principle that always holds true. The more you understand your body, the more power you have to protect your heart, preserve your health, and live with vitality for years to come. Leafy greens like kale, spinach, lettuce, and arugula are some of the most celebrated foods in modern nutrition. They're nutrient dense, rich in antioxidants, and loaded with fiber. They've been linked to reduced risk of cancer, lower cholesterol levels, and improved brain and heart function. And for good reason. When eaten as part of a regular diet, they do extraordinary things inside the body. But what many people don't realize, particularly those over 60, is that not all greens are created equal. The same vegetable that offers your body powerful health benefits can also carry invisible risks depending on how it's grown, harvested, and treated. One of those risks comes from pesticide residues. Pesticides are chemical substances used to protect crops from insects, mold, and disease. They help farmers grow large volumes of food and reduce crop loss. But these chemicals don't just disappear once the greens reach your plate. In fact, Studies have consistently shown that many of the most commonly consumed vegetables, particularly leafy greens, rank among the highest in residual pesticide content, even after washing. In younger, healthy individuals, the liver and kidneys are generally capable of filtering out small amounts of these compounds. But after age 60, things begin to shift. The body's detoxification systems may not be as efficient. Enzyme activity that helps process toxins slows down. The gut barrier may become more permeable. And the immune system, already more prone to chronic low-grade inflammation with age, becomes more vulnerable to chemical stressors. So how do pesticides affect the heart? It starts at the cellular level. Many pesticides are endocrine disruptors, meaning they can interfere with hormone balance. Hormones regulate more than just mood or metabolism. They play a critical role in blood pressure, cholesterol regulation, blood vessel flexibility, and even cardiac rhythm. Disrupting that balance over time can lead to elevated cardiovascular risk. In addition, certain pesticides, particularly organophosphates and carbamates, have been linked in research to oxidative stress, where damaging free radicals outpace the body's natural antioxidant defenses. This oxidative stress is a well-known contributor to endothelial dysfunction, which damages the inner lining of blood vessels. Once the endothelium is compromised, it's easier for cholesterol to build up, harder for vessels to dilate, and easier for blood pressure to rise. The long-term consequence, a gradual increase in the risk for atherosclerosis, heart attack, and stroke, particularly in people already managing blood pressure, diabetes, or kidney issues. But there's a second layer to this, gut health. The gut microbiome, a vast ecosystem of bacteria that plays a direct role in regulating inflammation, metabolism, and cardiovascular risk, is highly sensitive to pesticide exposure. Some pesticides have been shown to reduce beneficial gut bacteria, such as lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, while allowing pro-inflammatory species to thrive. This imbalance, called dysbiosis, can lead to what scientists call a leaky gut, where the lining of the digestive tract becomes more permeable. That allows fragments of food, bacteria, and toxins to enter the bloodstream, triggering an immune response. And when that immune response stays chronically activated, as it often does in older adults, it can silently increase cardiovascular inflammation. So while a bowl of spinach salad or a kale smoothie seems like a wise, heart-healthy choice, and it often is, the quality of the greens matters. If you're eating several servings of non-organic leafy greens daily, you may be accumulating pesticide residues that gradually stress your body's systems, especially your heart and circulatory system. Fortunately, the solution is simple and within reach. The first and most effective strategy is to choose organic when it comes to leafy greens. The difference in pesticide residue between organic and conventional greens is not minor. It's significant. Multiple independent studies have shown that organic produce contains far fewer detectable pesticide residues, and when they are present, they tend to be at much lower levels and from less toxic compounds. Now, not everyone has access to or can afford to buy all organic produce. That's understandable. In that case, prioritize the Environmental Working Group. EWG publishes an annual list called the Dirty Dozen, which ranks produce with the highest pesticide loads, and leafy greens like spinach and kale often rank near the top. If you can only afford to buy a few organic items, start with those. Next, wash your greens properly. A quick rinse under water isn't enough to remove most pesticide residues. Instead, soak your greens in a solution of water and baking soda or water and vinegar for 10 to 15 minutes. Then rinse thoroughly. This can remove some surface residues, though it may not eliminate those that have penetrated the plant tissue. You can also rotate your greens. Diversify your intake with lower residue options like organic romaine, watercress, bok choy, or herbs like parsley and cilantro. These offer similar benefits with potentially fewer chemical exposures. Finally, support your detoxification pathways. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts, in moderation, help the liver break down toxins. Foods rich in glutathione precursors, such as garlic and onions, help neutralize oxidative stress, and fermented foods like kimchi, kefir, and sauerkraut feed your gut bacteria and keep the microbiome in balance, which is key to controlling systemic inflammation. In the end, the goal isn't to scare anyone away from leafy greens. Quite the opposite. These are some of the most powerful, heart-supporting foods on the planet. But after 60, when your body's defenses are more fragile and the margin for toxic exposure is narrower, it pays to be precise. Think of your food as a message. Every bite you take is a signal to your biology, encouraging healing or allowing harm. The more intentional those messages are, the more protection you give to your heart, to your brain, and your future. Broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. These are among the most powerful vegetables we know for fighting cancer, supporting detoxification, and reducing inflammation. Their sulfur-rich compounds, like sulforaphane, help turn on genes that protect cells from oxidative stress and DNA damage. So it might come as a surprise to learn that for some people, especially older adults, these vegetables can carry a hidden risk when consumed in excess. That risk has to do with something called goitrogens. Goitrogens are naturally occurring compounds found in cruciferous vegetables that can interfere with the function of the thyroid gland, a small but powerful organ located in the front of your neck. The thyroid plays a crucial role in metabolism, energy production, and importantly, heart regulation. It produces hormones that influence your heart rate, blood pressure, and even cholesterol levels. When the thyroid isn't functioning properly, your cardiovascular system feels the effects. Here's where goitrogens come in. These compounds, particularly in raw cruciferous vegetables, can inhibit iodine uptake by the thyroid. Iodine is an essential mineral that the thyroid needs to produce its hormones. Without enough iodine, the thyroid can't function efficiently. Over time, this may lead to hypothyroidism, a condition where the gland becomes underactive. Now, why is this especially relevant for people over 60? First, the thyroid naturally becomes more vulnerable with age. Seniors are more likely to develop subclinical hypothyroidism, a subtle form of low thyroid function that often goes undiagnosed, but can still affect metabolism and cardiovascular health. Second, iodine intake tends to decrease with age, particularly in people who avoid iodized salt or dairy, which are primary sources of dietary iodine in many countries. Combine that with frequent intake of raw or lightly cooked cruciferous vegetables, and you may be quietly suppressing your thyroid function without realizing it. The effects may be subtle: slower metabolism, mild fatigue, sensitivity to cold, or slight weight gain. But behind the scenes, the thyroid's reduced output of hormones can also lead to slower heart rate, elevated LDL cholesterol, and increased arterial stiffness, all of which heighten the risk for cardiovascular events. This doesn't mean these vegetables are bad for you. In fact, they are some of the most protective foods available. But like all powerful tools, they need to be used wisely. So what's the solution? It starts with preparation and moderation. Cooking cruciferous vegetables significantly reduces their goitrogenic compounds. Light steaming or boiling for just a few minutes can deactivate most of these substances while preserving the vital nutrients like vitamin C, fiber, and sulforaphane. If you love kale salads or raw broccoli in a crudité platter, enjoy them occasionally, but don't make raw crucifers the mainstay of every meal. If you juice regularly, pay extra attention. A common practice in green juicing is to include raw kale, spinach, or collard greens in high volume. This practice can expose you to concentrated levels of goitrogens day after day. For people with healthy thyroids, the body can usually compensate, but for older adults with borderline thyroid function, or those with an undiagnosed deficiency in iodine, This can tip the balance and quietly suppress thyroid activity. That brings us to the next point, iodine status. If you're over 60 and don't consume iodized salt, seaweed, or dairy regularly, you may want to consider your iodine intake. You don't need large amounts. The recommended dietary allowance is just 150 micrograms per day, but consistent intake is essential. If you're unsure, speak with a healthcare provider or nutritionist who can assess your dietary habits and suggest whether supplementation or dietary changes are needed. Also worth noting, the gut thyroid connection. Healthy gut helps convert thyroid hormones into their active form. Cruciferous vegetables, when cooked, support gut health by feeding beneficial bacteria. Fermented versions like sauerkraut or kimchi offer both gut and thyroid support when eaten in moderation. If you do have hypothyroidism diagnosed or suspected, speak with your doctor before increasing your intake of cruciferous vegetables in raw form. And if you're taking thyroid medication, consistency in your diet is key. Sudden large increases in cruciferous vegetables can affect how your body absorbs and utilizes thyroid hormone replacement therapy. Ultimately, the takeaway is not to avoid these vegetables, but to understand the context in which they are most beneficial. For most people, eating cooked broccoli or roasted Brussels sprouts a few times a week is incredibly supportive for the immune system. But for older adults who are eating large quantities of raw cruciferous daily, or who may be iodine deficient or managing thyroid concerns, a few thoughtful adjustments can make a big difference. You want your thyroid operating smoothly, especially later in life, because when your thyroid is in balance, your heart rate is steady, your blood pressure is stable, and your cholesterol levels tend to stay in check. It's one of the great internal regulators of vitality. So lean into the power of cruciferous vegetables. Just cook them, rotate them, and pair them with a nutrient-rich, iodine-conscious diet. Small changes made consistently can protect not just your thyroid, but your entire cardiovascular system. Because your food isn't just fueling your body, it's fine-tuning it. And when every system is in harmony, especially after 60, your body knows exactly how to protect, repair, and thrive. There's no question that vegetables are essential to human health. They form the cornerstone of nearly every diet linked to longevity, cardiovascular protection, and reduced risk of chronic disease. But the conversation becomes more nuanced when we talk about people over 60, because the aging body changes. It responds differently to nutrients, to stress, and even to the preparation of food. What nourished you at 40 might require adjustment at 70, not because the food has changed, but because your body has. And this is where something powerful comes into play: awareness. After 60, health isn't just about what you eat. It's about how, when, and what combinations. Vegetables remain one of your most powerful allies, but they must be approached with balance and intention. Even healthy foods can create friction in the body if consumed without awareness of how they interact with aging physiology. Let's look at a simple example. Raw spinach is rich in folate, magnesium, and plant-based iron, but it's also high in oxalates, which in sensitive individuals or those with declining kidney function can interfere with calcium absorption or contribute to kidney stone formation. Cooking spinach, even lightly, dramatically reduces its oxalate content, making it easier for the body to handle a small change in preparation, but a significant shift in how the body responds. This kind of adjustment is not about giving up certain vegetables. It's about learning how to optimize their benefits while minimizing the risks that become more pronounced with age. Another key element is variety. Many people fall into the trap of eating the same healthy vegetables over and over again. Kale in every smoothie, tomatoes in every salad, cauliflower at every dinner. But even good things, when overused, can create imbalances. Each vegetable carries its own profile of nutrients, plant compounds, and yes, sometimes natural defense chemicals like lectins, goitrogens, or alkaloids The best way to reduce your exposure to any one compound is to diversify your intake. Variety doesn't just protect you from potential downsides, it broadens your nutrient intake and supports a more diverse gut microbiome. And your gut, as we've come to understand, is a master regulator of inflammation, immunity, and even heart health. The more diverse your plant intake, the more resilient and functional your microbiome becomes. That translates into better digestion, reduced inflammation, and improved nutrient absorption, all of which support cardiovascular function. Awareness also means knowing your own body's signals. One person might thrive on raw bell peppers, while another might experience joint discomfort after eating nightshades. One person may digest cabbage just fine, while another might feel bloated or sluggish. These aren't random reactions, they're messages. And the older we get, the more important it becomes to listen. If you notice consistent discomfort, fatigue, or even mood changes after eating certain vegetables, don't ignore it. Keep a food journal. Pay attention. What you're doing is gathering data, not to restrict yourself unnecessarily, but to refine your choices in a way that supports how your body functions best. Part of this process includes taking a closer look at food sourcing at 60 and beyond. Small amounts of toxins or residues like pesticides on leafy greens or preservatives in canned vegetables can have a larger impact on overall health. That's because the body's detoxification pathways may be slower, and chronic exposure to even low doses of harmful chemicals can subtly increase oxidative stress and inflammation. Whenever possible, choose organic, wash your vegetables thoroughly, or peel produce that's likely to have higher chemical loads. These small practical steps add up. Timing also plays a role. For example, eating heavy cruciferous vegetables late at night may not sit well with everyone, especially those with slower digestion. A big raw salad might be perfect for lunch, but less ideal for dinner. Pay attention to how your body digests food at different times of day and adjust accordingly. Your goal is always to make your food work for you, not against you. And perhaps most importantly, don't fall into extremes. The wellness world often celebrates superfoods. Eat this, avoid that, never touch this. But real health after 60 is not about absolutes. It's about understanding nuance. Broccoli isn't perfect, but it's powerful. Spinach can be hard on the kidneys if overconsumed raw, but it's also a rich source of iron and folate. Canned vegetables can offer convenience, but only if you rinse them and choose low sodium options. Balance is the key, not just on your plate, but in how you relate to food. View vegetables not as good or bad, but as tools. Each one has a function, and your job is to use them wisely. Rotate your greens, steam or saute when needed. Lean into variety. Pay attention to preparation, sourcing, and how your body feels. This kind of intelligent, responsive eating becomes a form of medicine, not in the sense of curing disease, but in the sense of maintaining strength, clarity, and vitality. Because food doesn't just fuel you, it sends messages to your DNA, your immune system, your heart. When you choose and prepare vegetables with awareness, grounded in your unique needs and the science of aging, you turn every meal into an act of protection and renewal. And that's not just eating to survive, that's eating to thrive.